This book tells the story of a blue dragon belonging to the five-color dragon, from breaking out of its shell to building its own legendary story. The beginning of this journey starts with a story called Broken Scales. From birth, dragons go through a cycle of old scales breaking and falling off at each age stage, followed by the growth of new scales. For dragons, this is a necessary process for growth. Dragon research expert Brew, The Life of a Dragon. Keywords of the novel. Eternal Preface Scales without pop-ups, Eternal Preface Scales. Download the complete collection of TXT, and read the latest chapters of Eternal Preface Scales. Chapter 1. Good Luck Quez. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Good Luck Quez. The dry hot wind blows over the earth covered by endless yellow sand and rough rocks. Unexpectedly, the rugged and dry bones buried beneath the sand and stones were exposed, and after a few breaths, they were covered again by the raised sand. Natural selection and the law of the fittest are vividly portrayed in this barren land. There is often no clear boundary between predators and prey here. The hovering eagle found its favorite prey, and the iconic tail exposed outside the sand dune indicated a fat rattlesnake hidden here. The predator in the sky folded its wings and launched a hunt from the air as usual. But just as its claws were about to touch the snake's body hidden under the sand, the swaying tail of the rattlesnake suddenly released a ripple-like sound wave. This sudden counterattack caused the eagle's body to instantly lose its focus and plunge directly into the sand dune. Before it could recover its composure and make any other reaction, this unlucky guy was torn apart by a claw with reddish scales in its throat. Claw. This is not an organ that a rattlesnake can have. There is a membrane between its sharp claws, sharp teeth in its throat, and a reptile that is extremely similar to a rattlesnake's tail. It shakes off the sand on its body and walks slowly towards its prey. This reptile has 2 lumps of flesh on its neck, which is a special neck crease that has not yet developed any sharp lines. It is a young stage rattlesnake. The most common hunting method for this winged terrestrial dragon beast is to rely on its tail, similar to that of a rattlesnake, disguised as food for eagles to lure and kill it. After a successful ambush, it did not immediately start eating in large quantities, but carefully and quickly dragged its prey into the already dug hole. It must be cautious as it is still in its youth stage. Even if it becomes a top hunter capable of using the dragon language and even mastering magical powers after reaching full adulthood, it must be more careful in this region. Because in this desert, there exists a hegemon far more powerful than it and its peers. Although there is still a slight bloodline relationship between those creatures and the velociraptor, more often than not, the velociraptor can only be considered as a seasoning in its diet. Or it could be a servant with some special abilities. Patu. With a gust of wind mixed with the roar of dragon language, the sidewinder, who was enjoying food in its nest, immediately flipped over and poked out of the gravel hole. No need to distinguish, there are not many creatures that can speak dragon language. In this land, apart from several other subspecies of dragons that have similar positions on the food chain, only the true rulers. The true 5-colored giant dragons in the blue dragon nest can speak such a precise dragon language. And obviously, only that person exists who knows his name. Dear Sir Quez. Seeing who the newcomer was, Rattlesore Patu quickly withdrew from its burrow, its tail swaying and making a hissing sound as if expressing inner joy. Standing in front of him was a member of the true ruling class of this land. Kaith Fetton, a young blue dragon who came to collect offerings from his servants during the intervals of patrolling the territory. Undoubtedly, dragons are the most gifted and extraordinary beings among all dragon lineages. Even the juvenile blue dragon, as a true dragon with a body size second only to the red dragon among the 5-color dragons, had a height of over 15 feet when Quez landed on all 4 limbs during his childhood. A sturdy neck, powerful forelimbs, sharp claws, symmetrical upward curved horns, and a deep understanding of blue-green scales all indicate the nobility and strength of this tribe to other dragons. Although he has grown into his youth, Pada has to accept the fact that he is still slightly smaller in size than a young blue dragon. And this fact is generally the most important distinction between food and predators in nature. Fortunately, Pada will not become food. It is a servant dragon relative of the young blue dragon in front of us, who only needs to contribute their labor. Do some labor according to its owner's wishes. Such as digging holes, in exchange for protection. Yes, its shelter. Its owner is the young blue dragon standing in front of us at this moment. Our protagonist, Quez. As a member of the Time Traveler, Zhao Rui was just an ordinary programmer before the author of this book allowed him to successfully navigate through it. He doesn't like smoking, drinking alcohol, and even more so, he doesn't like perms. His biggest hobby in daily life is just joining the Dungeons and Dragons game team. I got drunk during a group gathering after running a team. When he wakes up again, he will face the eerie reality that he has become a newly hatched blue dragon chick. There is no need to doubt that as the second most powerful blue dragon among the 5 color dragons, even in the juvenile stage, it is a creature with extremely high intelligence. However, the brain of this newborn dragon still cannot handle the thinking ability of an adult. After familiarizing himself with his body, due to the headache caused by the mixed knowledge brought by more than 20 years of human memory and dragon bloodline inheritance, Quez can only use sleep to sort and digest the knowledge in his brain after eating a large amount of food every day. This is actually the superpower he most wanted to have when he was in school. Lying down and learning knowledge is the only consolation he has had since his travels. Blue Dragon belongs to the order-keeping camp among the 5 color dragons. The intuitive manifestation is that blue dragons have a habit of relying on their bloodline to build a population and live together, and they belong to giant dragons with certain social attributes. The way they live in settlements gives them some distinct living habits from all other dragons. Especially in terms of raising offspring, unlike other forms of free-range breeding of the 5 color dragon, all newly born dragon eggs of the blue dragon are concentrated and protected by the entire population, in order to ensure that the offspring can safely pass through the fragile juvenile and juvenile dragon stages until reaching the youth stage. This also downplays the blue dragon's dependence on its parents during its embryonic stage, with more emphasis on bloodline and race. Moreover, blue dragon populations sometimes choose to hatch dragon eggs that do not belong to them. As long as they are not hostile, their offspring will be influenced by the blue dragon population and join the blue dragon family that hatches and raises them. And our protagonist, Quez, was found and given the opportunity to hatch for this reason. In fact, finding him was also a coincidence in itself. Back in an era even older than ancient times, this land was not yet filled with scorching hot winds and rough yellow sand. A country that once had a brilliant civilization has built many miraculous achievements on this land. The history of this civilization is too ancient, and the truth is beyond investigation. Only in the legends of the eternal race can we glimpse the remnants of that civilization. And dragons happen to be creatures that can live for a long time, and even those over 10,000 years old can be found among dragons. Therefore, there are various secrets and traditions about this place among the dragons. Some dragon legends suggest that descendants of elemental plane lords established this civilization, as dragons have excavated many broken magic formation materials in the ruins of this civilization that can enslave elemental giants. There are also legends that may be a floating city of the bright essence of the arcane civilization, which is a pioneering city ruled by the great Olympian school. As for the reason for the disappearance of this civilization, it was due to the collective fall of the floating city that destroyed the Nisur civilization. Which can also explain why this land has become so desolate, and to this day, there are still many places with unknown energy radiation. In addition, there is a more erudite one, which is speculated to be a branch of the ancient Amaskan civilization, because there are more mechanical artifacts here than other arcane civilizations. Various deductions are difficult to distinguish between true and false. The life of dragons is long enough, so often each dragon develops its own hobbies. The blue dragon, belonging to the 5-colored giant dragon, is not as fond of picking faults and fighting as the red dragon, nor is it as unreasonably suspicious as the green dragon and black dragon, and is willing to frame others or suspect that it has encountered some conspiracy. Moreover, it is not like the white dragon, which is like a wild beast, eating and waiting to die. As a creature that leans towards order, the blue dragon often develops a hobby of exploring to find hidden history throughout its long life. They are passionate about exploring the process of discovery and will ultimately find great satisfaction in obtaining answers. Salota, a legendary dragon with a reputation among the races, is the leader of the blue dragon tribe residing in this desert region called Area, and naturally became a fan of exploring the historical secrets buried in this desert. After reaching adulthood, he initiated dozens of explorations into the land ruled by the population, and in the process of exploring these relics, he discovered many benefits. The most obvious manifestation of these benefits is that it became a legend during the Old Dragon stage. The rewards of exploring and discovering secrets have enabled him to surpass at least 2 age groups in strength. With him as the leader, the blue dragons have a more stable rule over this land. 15 or more adult blue dragons, as well as an equal or even greater number of young dragons, and juvenile dragons. Counting the low reproductive efficiency of the dragon race, such a population size can truly be called a thriving population. Because of this tireless desire to explore did not decline until Salota grew from the Old Dragon stage to the extreme Old Dragon stage. On the one hand, most of the relics that can be explored have been found, and the most valuable ones have been excavated by him. The rest of the place is either too dangerous for even a legendary dragon, or the value of exploration is not significant. After all, the blue dragon is not the type of dragon with an extreme curiosity like the scrollbook dragon. Their instinct for order makes their behavior quite rational. Secrets that cannot bring benefits to themselves, even if they exist, are only of interest rather than necessity. Just before Salota had completed his years of dormant evolution towards the Elder Dragon, he launched his last exploration mission to date. That is to say, this time, buried in a place similar to an incubator, he discovered Quez. Or to put it another way, dragon eggs named Quez have also been discovered, along with eggs from other dragon species and sub-dragons. But except for the lucky Quez, all other dragon eggs have lost their activity and become fossils over a long period of time. Coincidentally, the dragon egg discovered by the legendary blue dragon belongs to the blue dragon race. Therefore, Salota brought it back to the dragon nest and handed it over to the adult blue dragon in the population, who is responsible for incubating and educating young dragons. This is not related to good or evil, but rather to the innate rationality of blue dragon. Due to its low reproductive efficiency, even opposing dragons rarely engage in behavior that damages dragon eggs. Every addition of a young dragon can bring more power to the entire population. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Big Head and Big Head. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Big Head and Big Head. After being hatched from the eggshell, Quez went through a 6-year juvenile stage. Like other blue dragons of the same age, Quez spends most of his time sleeping and eating. Due to the innate bloodline inheritance of dragons, they acquire corresponding basic knowledge at various age stages, and this process is called knowledge awakening. In the juvenile stage, due to the immaturity of the newborn giant dragons, their thinking and memory abilities are not sound enough. Due to their protective mechanisms for the body, they spend most of their time sleeping except for eating. The young dragons need to sort out various knowledge that appears in their brains through sleep, which is the first learning experience of this highly intelligent species. But for Quez, the process of knowledge awakening is quite difficult. Learning, regardless of the type of organism, is a gradual process that requires acceptance, understanding, memory, and cramming. Education makes it difficult for learners to master knowledge. If educators only know how to impart knowledge blindly, the greatest possibility is to create a delusional person with a mind full of seemingly irrelevant knowledge. Although it's like learning knowledge by falling asleep, the remnants of this bloodline not only give each dragon enough sleep time to complete digestion and memory, but also pass on in batches according to the dragon's different age stages. This rule is only a normal physiological process for ordinary young dragons, but for our protagonist Quez, it becomes a huge test, although in terms of age, he is only a newborn dragon. However, the process of knowledge awakening for determining the amount of knowledge content to be inherited is calculated based on the time when the dragon eggs are laid rather than hatched. Under this calculation rule, the knowledge he needs to passively inherit even exceeds that of the oldest legendary dragon in the blue dragon nest, Solota. It's like when in school, the content that was supposed to be taught by the teacher for a semester was compressed into one class, and this kind of course lasted for over 6 years. If Quez had not the ability to summarize and establish database-style memory brought by his background as a programmer, and for unknown reasons, he had a more efficient ability to evolve and adjust his body than other young dragons. Our protagonist, as a young dragon, may have started dragon life before it even started. Fortunately, the writers always take care of the protagonist. Quez survived the constant passive teaching style of improvement classes, in a state of sleeping when full, and successfully passed the embryonic stage. However, his growth at this stage was influenced by excessive knowledge awakening, which led to corresponding adjustments in his body. His head grew too large, and this evolution, on the one hand, increased the brain capacity and thus enhanced its ability as a thought carrier. On the other hand, a huge mouth can quickly complete chewing and swallowing while eating, saving him more time and allowing him to become addicted to learning. For a full 6 years and 7 months, this soul from another world gradually became estranged from the body of the young dragon, and our protagonist Quez also accepted the fact that he had become a fantasy side creature. The blue dragon, which has completed the knowledge transmission and entered the juvenile stage, will not be as lethargic as when it first hatched. During this period, the blue dragon would basically master 1 to 2 innate magic spells based on its own talents. At the same time, I will also try to master and gradually become familiar with using my body for hunting and combat. The blue dragon cub will appear particularly active at this time, and this situation will continue until the young dragon stage. During this period, dragons were very similar to humans in the bear child stage, and their destructive power was much greater than that of bear children. At this time, the young dragons were already able to crush some large beasts in terms of body size, and some well-developed ones would have even larger chunks. Moreover, even the most ferocious wilderness is difficult to compare with. Surprisingly large, bear child dragons usually have the natural ability to cast spells with 1 or 2 hands, and their habit of breathing attacks makes them difficult and dangerous predators. Of course, difficult to deal with is not terrifying, dangerous is not fatal. In fact, at this stage, dragons may pose many dangers to themselves due to their behavior similar to that of bear children. Lack of experience and a playful and adventurous personality can expose them to various dangers while exploring this world. Most of the brave warriors who have accomplished the feat of slaughtering dragons have been slaughtered, like young dragons who have taken refuge from their mother dragons and caused trouble like bear children. At this stage, due to the excellent family education of the blue dragon, which formed a social structure of dragon nests through ethnic settlement, specific adult blue dragons were uniformly educated and punished, resulting in a higher survival rate for their offspring compared to other 5-color dragons. Of course, it is not simply forbidden. The blue dragon group has a way for young dragons to vent their vigorous energy. The battle between young dragons is a tradition of the blue dragon race, which allows for the training of their own combat skills and the establishment of their future position in the population. There are basically 3 forms of combat for dragons: breathing, spell abilities, and pure hand-to-hand combat. The breathing of the blue dragon is lightning breathing, and adult blue dragons can spit out strong and continuous electrical currents, which can cause fatal damage to opponents. However, the general difference in the power of young dragons to exhale their breath is significant. When facing companions with extremely high lightning damage resistance, this type of attack is mostly ineffective. As for magical abilities, young blue dragons usually awaken 2 to 3 types of magical abilities based on their talents. Cloud and mist, lightning strike, and water creation, sewage, are the most awakened abilities. Cloud and mist technique. Create a cloud and mist that can confuse enemies. Lightning strike. Summons a powerful lightning bolt or a lightning net to deal damage to enemies. Water making technique, sewage treatment. Blue dragons living in arid deserts can use water making technique every day to communicate with water element planes to obtain water equal to their body weight for their own use, or to pollute water sources such as lakes. There may be other innate spells that can awaken, but most of them are relatively basic abilities. Only after they study and practice magic knowledge diligently in the future can they truly aspire to master this powerful and dangerous skill. Therefore, the young blue dragons fought against each other, mostly using hand-to-hand combat to compete for victory. Although there are specialized adult blue dragons guarding during the fight, there is no need to worry about casualties, but injuries and bleeding are inevitable. The blue dragon, belonging to the Order Abiding Evil camp, believes that this is a necessary process. Blood and pain will enable the young dragon to understand how to measure strength and obey order. In this competition, Quez's talent was unparalleled, and the title Phaeton in dragon language means giant skull. As the saying goes, a strong body does not lose strength. When agility and protection are similar, larger bodies on both sides of hand-to-hand combat often have more advantages. Especially when he has a ferocious and huge head. A terrifying mouth that can almost swallow the entire saber-toothed tiger in one bite, making Quez a nightmare for all young dragons who want to challenge him. Any opponent who fights against him, if accidentally bitten by that huge bite, will only suffer minor injuries. Even a few times, the adult dragon responsible for supervising the fight had to step down to stop it, in order to prevent Quez's opponent from being bitten and seriously injured by him. Of course, although the battle was stopped to avoid causing fatal harm, the blue dragon did not treat the young and vulnerable with any preferential treatment. Based on the values of the blue dragon race, those who are strong, skilled in combat, and cunning are the qualified descendants of the population. Therefore, Quez, who often wins battles, usually receives additional rewards. Although precious gold and jewelry, the favorite treasure of this dragon, were not willing to be gifted to him by his adult peers. But more food distribution, some useful spell equipment, and even more precious textual materials that include but are not limited to spell knowledge have allowed Quez's strength to grow rapidly every day. It is worth mentioning that with a more adequate food distribution, the growth of the young dragon Quez became extremely rapid, quickly breaking free from the awkward situation of the big-headed dragon. If it weren't for the color of the scales being fine, I really suspect you have the silly bloodline of a red dragon. This is the intuitive evaluation of Quez by an adult blue dragon responsible for watching Gu Yulong. At this point, the blue dragon, once known for its giant skull, has passed its juvenile dragon stage and become a juvenile dragon. His limbs have become thicker and stronger, and his 2 hind legs are extended to support his upright walking. The claws and teeth become sharper and can easily cut through hard granite rocks. The indigo scales are tighter and more resilient, and with every move, the accumulated charges in the body can even make a popping sound. These changes are good news for the blue dragon. Even discovering its legendary dragon Salada has to admit that this little one is stronger and more powerful than it was in its youth. Of course, as a legendary dragon, Salada does not believe that his position will be threatened by a small dragon, so he still has great expectations for the changes in Quez's younger generation who brought him into the dragon's nest. Perhaps this is the starting point for me to rediscover the desert ruins and explore. However, young dragons like Quez Phaeton, who are overweight, are not suitable for participating in battles between their peers. His current strength is comparable to that of a young blue dragon, and fighting him is both unfair and too dangerous for other young blue dragons. Therefore, Salada decided to arrange a new way to consume the vigorous energy of this little dragon. Given that the hundreds of square kilometers of desert near Dragon's Nest have been swept by the Salota tribe several times, there is no longer any danger. So Quez was arranged to manage the various sub-dragon species of servant dragons on the outskirts of the dragon nest, as well as patrol the dragon nest territory designated by Salota. Through this job, Quez can receive more opportunities to learn valuable spell knowledge as a reward. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Work and Servants. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Work and Servants. The work of patrolling the territory of the dragon nest can be boring and time-consuming for young or adult blue dragons. They prefer jobs that can enhance their strength or increase their wealth. For example, going to plunder cities or extort passing caravans from the outermost periphery of past territories, or responding to certain summoning forces and exchanging battles for rewards. But for Quez, this kind of job is the most satisfying. It can avoid the gaze of cunning and suspicious elders of the same kind, as well as the various noises that the bear kids, dragons want to challenge themselves every day. It can develop obscene and focus on growth, which is not only enjoyable but also enjoyable. So this young blue dragon happily measures the land ruled by the dragon nest with the shadow of its wings every day. A land area of hundreds of square kilometers may not be considered vast for creatures like dragons that can fly at high speeds, but it is also a considerable territory. Moreover, although the vast majority of resources or relics have been explored and excavated by the legendary dragon Salota, as long as there is a pair of discerning eyes, there will still be some small surprises left for diligent young dragons who are good at exploring and discovering. For example, during the first inspection, while digging a tunnel to hunt for a giant sandworm, Quez discovered a vein of bright copper and dark copper that had excellent benefits for himself. One of the benefits of inheriting a large amount of knowledge and awakening content is that Quez knows some secrets that powerful dragons will only know after the old dragon stage. For example, consciously consuming some metal minerals during the growth process can make the body of dragons stronger. For dragons like blue dragons, who possess innate electrical attributes, consuming metals with good electrical conductivity such as silver, gold, or copper can not only make their bodies stronger, but also enhance their magical talents by consuming them in large quantities. These are knowledge that ordinary adult dragons do not know. Although the teeth of the dragon are sharp enough to chew metal, the stomach acid is also strong enough to digest the vast majority of inorganic substances. An efficient energy utilization system can allow them to survive for a long time even if they simply eat dirt. However, under the premise of having sufficient flesh and blood prey, most dragons would not choose difficult-to-chew metal ores as food, let alone metals such as gold and silver, which bring sensory pleasure to dragons and are far more valuable than food. However, Quez, after all, has the soul of a programming ape from another world. Although his taste is not good, the thinking ability brought by rational thinking can force him to adapt to things that are beneficial to him. After nibbling on some chalcopyrite and tetrahedrite, he clearly felt that his digestive system was working. This can all be digested and absorbed. It's really good for teeth and appetite. It's delicious to eat. I thought to myself, comforting myself while eating to Quez. The knowledge of science and engineering from his past life still exists in his memory. He knew that metals were all composed of atoms, and the ores he swallowed were all metal compounds rich in copper. The process of self-digestion is to absorb the copper and a small amount of iron atoms that are useful for blue dragon, and enrich them towards bones, teeth, claws, sharp corners, and other parts. At the same time, other ingredients were not excreted or wasted, but were directly converted into energy through the digestive system in the body. This energy can even stimulate the growth and fission of body cells. Simply put, a giant dragon is like a digestive machine, eating more and growing faster, even if it keeps eating dirt. With sufficient energy to absorb, this young dragon's body size is growing rapidly every day. Swallowing a large amount of metal did not cause heavy metal poisoning, but instead made him grow faster than his peers who only ate meat and blood. Although these minerals are not delicious, and there are still some discomforts during the digestion process. But it has to be said that the efficiency of the dragon's digestive system in converting substances into energy can be considered abnormal. Even Quez sometimes finds that his body seems to be gradually adapting to this process of digestion. This situation does not exist in the knowledge of dragon inheritance. The young dragon speculates that this reason may be related to some modifications he had received in the dragon egg before his birth. However, it was ultimately a good change, and Quez quickly adapted to this reality. Every day during his patrols, he would actively explore and search for more mineral veins to add to his diet. After the discovery of the first vein, there were indeed some discovered veins, but most of them were shallow and poor in scale, and most of them had traces left by dragons. This made Quez speculate that he could know this path of advancement, and as the legendary dragon Salota, the ruler of the territory, there was no reason not to know. He may have taken the initiative to search for metal mines at some stage of his youth, just like himself, to eat soil for nourishment. However, as one ages, whether or not one has such a strange adaptive talent, the benefits brought by this approach will eventually reach a certain saturation state. For those powerful dragons, there may not be too many types of edible metals that are useful for themselves. Unless it is refined gold or secret silver, consuming a large amount of ordinary copper and iron can only make their own skin appear some beautiful patterns, without practical effect. Of course, this is especially useful for dragons like King Salata in the blue dragon population, and for Quez, who is currently in a period of physical growth. These additional meals are undoubtedly of great use. As the saying goes, I have a mine in my hand, but I don't panic in my heart. After finishing the last piece of metal or exposed on the surface of a small vein, the young dragon belched heavily before flying into the sky to continue his daily inspection work. At this time, the body size of Quez has exceeded the standard compared to its peers, the blue dragon. But this is not because of obesity, but because it is too muscular. After the young dragon unfolded its wings, the shadow it left could cover a community of more than 10 wild camels. If its body length was included in the dragon's tail, which was only slightly shorter than its body, it was already close to 60 feet, about 20 meters. In fact, if it weren't for the iconic dragon horns of the blue dragon still being ferocious and scales still being indigo, it would even make his fellow members of the blue dragon nest think that he is actually a nearly adult red dragon. Yes, after accepting the patrol work and having just entered the juvenile dragon age stage for less than 3 years, Quez has already thrown off nearly 2 age levels of his peers in terms of size. The difference in body size is often the most intuitive manifestation of the difference in strength for dragons. In addition to receiving sufficient extra meals during patrol work, Quez also gained a new benefit, my own servant. Any society requires a large number of the lowest level workers' contributions as the cornerstone. The blue dragon population is no exception, as its cornerstone is composed of dragon species that depend on it for survival. Desert doghead, Note 1, 3 major tribes. Hard teeth, sharp claw, healthy feet. In addition, the objective number of Asian dragons formed the dragon nest dependents designated by the legendary blue dragon Salata, who were also servants of the blue dragon population. The strong win and the victorious arrive for the dragon descendants and Asian dragons who believe in the strong. Quez's extremely intimidating physique and Salota's appointment, these dragon descendants joined in during the patrol of the territory. Harvesting these dependents would be of great help to Quez Fitan. Some of the dragon descendants have unique abilities that can assist him in handling many things. Xiangwei Patu is a great helper. As Yalong, the lives of the rattletail dragons are far less long than those of the giant dragons, and their aging speed is 5 times faster than that of the giant dragons. Therefore, they have reached the age level of the ancient dragon at 240 years old, and few of them can live beyond 300 years old. Diamondback dragon does not have wings, has a skin membrane between its claws, has sharp teeth in its throat, and also has a tail resembling that of a rattlesnake. Like the blue dragons living in the desert, the diamondback dragon is also skilled at digging. They can easily dig a passage in the sand and use their magical ability to turn sand into stone to reinforce the fine sand on the passage wall. Quez is precisely interested in the ability of the diamondback dragon. Although he had gradually accepted the fact that he had become a blue dragon, he still couldn't completely ignore the unscientific thing of time travel. At the place where the dragon egg was found, Quez believed that it was definitely the most likely place to find any doubts or problems that caused him. Therefore, the abilities of the Diamondback came into play. With the assistance of his Diamondback, who was no less talented than his own in playing thief holes, Quez believed that he would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort when exploring ancient civilization ruins. Moreover, it is even more convenient that adult and above sidewinders have a circular neck crease at the neck, which allows them to open their neck crease with immediate action. When fully unfolded, sidewinders can use the neck crease to rebound some spell damage. Of course, the level of spells that Diamondback can rebound from is not high, and some low-level spells with spell increment and spell penetration, super magic effects are likely to be unable to effectively defend. But this is already enough. After all, this ancient ruins in the desert region, a dangerous and valuable place, have been almost explored by the ruler of the dragon nest, Salota. The remaining areas are mostly of little value and relatively low risk. Hand it over to sub-dragons like Diamondback to excavate those relics. Even if they encounter some magical traps, they can turn danger into safety through the innate abilities of their race. Discovering first and exploring later, sub-dragons like Patu can first search within the range marked by Quez, and then hand over the accurate location of the ruins to the young blue dragon for further research and exploration. In this way, Quez can carry out his secret recipe mining work in a more efficient way. He only needs to regularly check the work of these Yalong and examine some of the gains they may have gained during the extensive search process in the early stages. Note 1, Desert Doghead. Dogheads have scaly skin ranging from dark brown to black, with two light-colored horns on their dog-like heads, sparkling eyes, and a mouse-like tail. They can speak dragon language, but their voice is like a barking dog. Doghead humans and dragons are biological close relatives. However, there is one of the most important differences between them, which is that dog-headed humans are cold-blooded creatures, while dragons are warm-blooded animals. As a cold-blooded humanoid, dog-headed humans are very sensitive to temperature. Doghead people living in hot desert areas have stronger mobility and slightly taller bodies compared to their counterparts living in wilderness or underground areas, similar in height to adult humans. Like all dog-headed human tribes, they are accustomed to attaching themselves to the blood relatives of the strong dragon tribe and obtaining the qualification of dependence by serving the dragons. The number of people in the Gutta tribe is limited by environmental resources and rarely exceeds 3 digits. Under certain conditions, dragon-bodied dog-headed humans with wings and the ability to fly will also be born. Also known as Erdard, which is equivalent to wing in dragon language and means wings. However, if there is no protection from the giant dragon worshipped by the tribe, the dragon-bodied dog-headed person will generally be killed by their own kind. This behavior is not just out of jealousy, but deeper reasons stem from some conflicts left over from ancient times. Before uploading this chapter, I saw the first recommendation ticket for this book. Thank you for your support. Starting today, it will be changed to 2 daily updates. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Lead Acid Batteries. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Lead Acid Batteries. Patu, what did you gain this time? Blue Dragon stood on the sand dune, staring at the clawed members of the Diamondback dragon on the ground. To my esteemed Quez Fitan, Patu replied in dragon language with a hissing sound, sticking out his forked tongue. Your servant has discovered a small relic this time, some strange trinkets, and no suspicious magical items have been found. I have stored some samples brought back in the cave. Quez rummaged through the relics pulled out by the Diamondback from its hiding lair, and found that there were no traces of magical attachment on these items, mostly fragments of mechanical parts. It should be due to the fact that this area is a desert, with low moisture content in the air and a dry environment that prevents these metal parts from rusting, but Quez used his paws to tease a few Patu's exploration harvests. These metals seem to be composed of many different alloys, which is different from what was found in previous relics. The discovery of relics proves that ancient civilizations on this land not only possess powerful magic, but also seem to have in-depth research in the field of technology or metal smelting. As Quez rummaged through, there were still many interesting small parts scattered before his eyes, but most of them were remnants, making it difficult to find any valuable traces from them. Just as he was about to complete this inspection, a square-shaped cube caught his attention. Blue Dragon has a natural affinity for electricity, and the powerful Blue Dragon can control the charge. Just as Quez's fingertips touched this cube, a flickering current was caught by Blue Dragon's eyes, which was different from the occasional tip-discharge phenomenon of Blue Dragon's surface charge. Quez could feel that the transferred charge had not calmed down, and the electrical energy had not disappeared, but was stored in this cube. Can it store electrical energy? It seems like a battery. Quez thought for a moment and used a simple prophecy spell called Exploration to confirm what this cube really is. But the feedback of the spell is affected by the interference of the object itself, and excluding the interference of casting indicates that the interior of this cube is rich in lead. It's most likely a lead-acid battery. It has to be said that magic is wonderful. Although the knowledge inherited by the Blue Dragon may not allow Quez to integrate and become a casting master, spells do provide more than one effective tool for solving some problems. Although the exploration technique of the prophecy system may have deviations when facing lead plates, there are still various arcane visions that can be used, such as the true knowledge vision. Perhaps we should maintain some useful arcane vision. Quez also made his first attempt at using magic to solve the problem. Under the true knowledge vision, observing the surface of a cube can present all physical information in the brain, while also having a perspective-like effect. The composition and geometric structure of the internal components of the cube are clearly presented in a list form organized by the Quez brain. Moreover, during the presentation, some commonly used measures in the world, such as length wristbands and mass derby, were automatically converted into Earth units more familiar to Quez. Name: Ancient Civilization Energy Module, damaged, form 666 cubic decimeter cube, approximately 54.3 kilograms, function. A battery module made using the principle of lead-acid batteries, where the internal lead containing structural metal is immersed in sulfuric acid to generate current. The part of the battery's surface engraved with positive text is the positive electrode, and the part engraved with negative text is the negative electrode. Under normal circumstances, it is suspected to provide energy to small and medium-sized mechanical structures. Stable discharge can be recycled, but due to prolonged exposure to acid leakage and volatilization, it has been partially damaged. Looking at these introductions, Quez realized that he might have found a treasure. This world has all kinds of magic, but it is precisely the limitations of knowledge that these creations without magical light are easily overlooked by those who discover them. Previously, Salada was likely to have overlooked the existence of these technological creations during the excavation process. Where did you find these things? In the area you marked, the cave leading to the ruin still exists, but the exit has already been buried by me. Because this ruins is close to the oasis on the edge of the territory, there are occasional caravans passing by. The Diamondback realized that Quez valued the harvest of this discovery, so it tried to recall the previous exploration and wanted to recall more useful information. After gathering his first group of relatives, Blue Dragon assigned the first task to have these dragon descendants explore some designated desert ruins for him. Moreover, most of these individually marked key areas revolve around the area where Salada found the Quez-Phaeton dragon egg. According to logical reasoning, the Blue Dragon may have hidden the reasons for its appearance in this world. Upon receiving a message from Diamondback Padu, Quez recalled the location of this exploration point and said, "It is approximately 35 Palasan kilometers southwest to east, which is about 47 kilometers away." He calculated the distance. There should be some time before the end of this patrol, and before returning to report on work, you can go and explore this ruins briefly. The cubic lead-acid battery is the first time that Blue Dragon has discovered a technological creation similar to Earth in this world. He felt it was necessary for him to rush over and take a look at the situation as soon as possible. Even if exploration cannot be completed at once, it is still necessary to find opportunities in the future to uncover the hidden secrets of this relic in batches. Moreover, the final handling of the hand-tail of the relic passage by the diamondback dragon was not very clever. Since the value of this relic was discovered, Quez felt it was necessary to personally conceal this place to avoid any future setbacks. After thinking about these things, Blue Dragon gave Diamondback instructions to continue exploring other marked areas, then jumped up and flew straight towards the ruins with its wings spread out in the wind. At the same time, near the ruins discovered by the Diamondback, a caravan composed of dozens of camel beasts walked on the scorching sand dunes. Santos Ben Zas, a famous merchant in the city of Nam and owner of the Sand Rhinoceros caravan, was sitting in a pavilion on the back of the largest sand rhinoceros in the center of the caravan. Although the pavilion has a sunshade roof covered with lizard skin, the hot desert wind still brings unbearable high temperatures. Fortunately, this businessman with a slightly overweight physique prepared a water bag and washed fruits that had just been replenished with cool spring water from the oasis, to quench thirst and alleviate the deep fatigue caused by long-distance business trips. Santos lifted the white bandage and let sweat flow down his cheeks. One hand loosened the waistband, while the other picked up a water bag and poured a mouthful of spring water into it, ignoring the water droplets wetting the linen shirt on the chest. At noon, the desert is particularly hot, especially for merchants who are fat and have a huge belly. The blazing sun is above, and the damned Salem and Sassoon people are at war in the month of Opani, the second month of summer. May fire and sand curse these two barbaric scum tribes wandering outside the city of Nam. The objects he cursed, Salem and Sachem, were two giant desert nomadic elf tribes near the city of Nam, with over 10,000 stringed warriors. Although this land is nominally under the jurisdiction of the consul of Nam City, who was enfeoffed by King Chifa of the United States, the consuls of the city-state clearly lack effective restraint over the nomadic people who come and go like the wind and have no fixed abode. Norm's army is mostly composed of infantry garrisons with shield-wielding swordsmen, lacking highly mobile cavalry. In this way, if the army wants to deal with the scabies of these empires, it needs to use the power of the spellcasters. But to subdue such a large tribal population, at least multiple spellcasters need to participate, and perhaps even legendary-level spellmasters are necessary as a last resort. In this desert-covered world, there seem to be many sources of spells, but even magic cannot violate the first law of thermodynamics. In addition to the innate spell-like abilities of the casting race and the existence of some mysterious sources that can communicate and mobilize spell energy in the multiverse. As for the magic web, there has never been any deity related to the field of magic in this world, and even the belief aspect of this world is the same as its natural environment. This is a desert of faith. Naturally, there is no magic web specially woven by deities responsible for managing spells commonly found in other worlds. Most human spellcasters in this world possess the ability to extract vitality or soul energy from the surrounding environment to convert it into magic. It is said that this casting method comes from another main material plane, Adas, which is also composed of deserts. This casting method obviously has significant limitations in desert areas. In the vast desert, there are few vegetation and species that can carry advanced spell releases. This requires spellcasters to carry obsidian beads that have been infused into slave souls in advance to extract energy or directly extract their own vitality to cast spells. Although there are solutions, one spell is one life, and even more slave lives. The cost is not expensive, and some non-evil casters may choose to undergo regular psychological therapy after using this spell method. In addition, the source of this casting method. Those who have already developed an interest in exploring the multiverse and have intersected with the world of Adas, at least at the legendary level or above, must have understood the tragedy caused by the abuse of this casting method in the world of Adas. Ecosystem collapse and species extinction. So mages who use this method of casting will first learn to restrain themselves, and they will try to control their casting behavior beyond research. Unless it is a forced battle, the caster tries to avoid all conflicts as much as possible. After all, no one with a normal mind is willing to watch their world go to destruction. Therefore, the powerful spellcasters possessed by the city of Nam only have a strong deterrent effect on the surface, but for the struggles between tribes outside the city, the council still lacks the ability to mediate and intervene. In most cases, if conflicts between these tribes do not escalate, they will be allowed to occur. The scorching sun and hot wind will always stop the tribes from fighting each other, and there won't be too much loss for Nam's interests. This is the final conclusion made by Consul Nam regarding the conflict between two tribes. However, unlike the optimistic predictions of the consul and the mocking remarks of the urbanites filled with ignorance and gloating, Nam's caravan actually dislikes tribal conflicts and wars. This is not related to morality and kindness, but only to their immediate interests. A trade route that can be safely passed through by paying a certain toll to the tribe, but now when encountering a tribe's patrol team, they will be demanded all the goods and even be looted and slaughtered. These damn tribe people, who are so poor that they can't gather a set of armor, become extremely greedy during the war. Santos Ben Zos leaned out of the booth and looked at his caravan marching under the scorching sun, but he couldn't help but think. Originally, the caravans in the desert were driven at night and rested during the day to save water and avoid the sun. But now, due to avoiding tribal wars, the trade routes have changed, and merchants have no choice but to choose to walk in dangerous areas that they usually do not pass through. Driving in these areas where you can't even afford a detailed map with a lot of money, it's very easy to get lost if you still go out during the day and night. Getting lost in the desert and encountering sandstorms are the two most dangerous situations. In order to avoid getting lost and catching up with the delivery time of the goods, the sand rhinoceros caravan can only endure high temperatures while traveling during the easily discerning daytime. Under such high temperatures, the merchants will lose another group of caravan slaves, and they will have to spend money to buy them when they arrive at Nam Dam tribal war. May fire and sand curse you. Split line one-tip discharge is a discharge phenomenon that occurs in sharp parts of an object under the action of a strong electric field. Belongs to a type of corona discharge. The charge at the tip of a conductor is particularly dense, and the electric field near the tip is particularly strong, leading to tip discharge. To a dry world called Adas. Adas was originally a rich blue ocean planet, but its vitality was taken away by uncontrollable magic, turning it into a scorching sun, abandoned by the gods, lacking water and hope, a world of catastrophic sunset. Spiritual superpowers are highly developed in Adas, even in animals, and each individual is born with one or two wild talents. However, compared to psychic powers, the casting form discovered by Adas by a Palin, villainous boss, is more well-known to everyone. Unlike most worlds, the magic energy they use is derived from absorbing the vitality of their surroundings, which allows them to quickly obtain a large amount of mana. However, excessive use turns the entire planet into a barren landscape. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Flying Sandwind Transfer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Flying Sandwind Transfer. I lay in the dust and sand for a long time, silent, forgetting the season. Gibrans, sand and mob. No one wants to hide in the sand in the scorching sun, unless you have a layer of skin without sweat glands and strong enough to resist the torment of high-temperature dehydration and rough gravel, and a pair of eyes like crocodiles with 2 layers of eyelids and a protective membrane. This is certainly not a physical structure that humans can possess, but the lizard-like predators in the desert can handle this type of ambush mission buried in the sand. Just in Santos, the sand rhinoceros caravan carefully avoided several suspected quicksand zones and walked into the ambush circle of the lizard-man predator from the shady side of the towering sand dunes. The attack swept like a sandstorm. When lurking in the scorching hot sand and enduring 3 or 4 hourglasses, the lizards darted out of the sand like fish thrown into an oil pot. They held precision steel-forged sickle blades and curved knives, throwing flying axes made of obsidian. For a moment, the enemy rushed towards the sand rhinoceros caravan from all directions. Don't be chaotic. Keep an eye on your camel beasts, warriors, resist these short reptiles for me. The others form a circular formation, pick up your weapons for me, prepare for battle for your own small lives. Santos saw the attack and with agility that was completely out of line with his plump body, he drew his machete from under the cushion, while activating the ring with the additional protective arrow spell that he had bought at a high price. As a successful caravan leader who travels through the desert year-round, he is definitely not a fragile lamb waiting to be slaughtered. He made the right judgment in the face of attacks at the first time. The throwing of the flying axe by the lizard man marauder only injured a few unlucky warriors and some bait slaves who were carrying supplies and taking care of the camel beasts in the crowd. At most, they killed a few horses ridden by the peripheral warriors of the caravan. However, these warriors had already jumped off before their mounts fell to the ground, skillfully using shields to resist and using machetes to break through the airstrike. Even an agile and powerful warrior cleverly sent the rotating flying axe back with a curved knife, directly overturning a lizard man who threw the flying axe. Well done. The warriors cheered loudly. Most of the warriors in the caravan were skilled in archery and horsemanship. After the lizard man threw the first round of flying axes, some warriors used their own curved bows and arrows to counterattack, while bold warriors manipulated the desert horse to circle around the lizard man's flank and back, using the tactic of twisting their waist and bending their bows to shoot at the enemy behind them while running around in a manly and vicious manner, using their speed advantage to harass and attack. Faced with the resistance and attacks of the hired warriors, some of the lizard man raiders chose to retreat back into the sand and dig quickly forward. Some choose to resist the warrior's arrow rain and throw the remaining flying axe into the enemy's line because the gravel under their feet is hard and difficult to excavate. Lizard people have rough and tough skin, as well as protection from scales and armor. They then use some broken armor from previous looting to arm their hearts, heads, and relatively fragile joints. Unless using crossbows and arrows, ordinary archers pose little threat to them. It took only a dozen breaths from the start of the attack to the contact with the hired warriors of the guards for a short combat. The sickle blades of these lizard raiders collided with the shields and machetes of the warriors. A single lizard person is not as tall as a human warrior and has less strength, but lizard people in the desert are better at cooperating and attacking each other. They are adept at attacking opponents in small groups of 2 or 3, forming small formations. Egg-laying lizards will become familiar with this hunting and combat style with their fellow hatchlings in the same nest. Therefore, although the number of caravan escort warriors was higher and the warriors themselves were stronger, the lizard man surprisingly used their agility advantage and small-scale battle formation coordination to offset this disadvantage. The heavily waving sickle blade tears through the air while occasionally reaping a life. However, this does not bring any change to the outcome. With a guard of over 30 experienced warriors facing these lizard raiders, victory is certain to come in the end. Santos looked at the caravan warriors and lizardman raiders glued together in a fierce battle, and suddenly furrowed his eyebrows. Something's wrong. There seems to be something wrong with it. This road was temporarily changed due to the war between the Salem and Sasan tribes, and it's too close to the ruling range of those dragons. Generally, no caravans would venture here. Even though these lizard people knew about the tribal war and were ambushed here preparing to attack the diverted caravan, but the number of people is not right. The number of lizard man raiders was too small, and the seasoned desert merchant immediately realized that based on his experience, these lizard man raiders like to use their numerical advantage when looting caravans. In order to be safe, they usually had to be twice the number of caravans before they chose to attack. Moreover, the weapons wielded by those lizard man raiders are all made of refined steel, not cheap obsidian, which can only be afforded by large raider tribes. A large tribe launching an attack would not have only a dozen or so attackers, so the remaining lizard man raiders could only be careful underground. The caravan owner who discovered the problem only had time to shout out his judgment loudly. The second round of attacks appeared before Santos could finish shouting. Twice as many lizard man raiders as the first round raiders broke through the sand in the middle of the caravan formation. Unlike the first wave of attacks, which used throwing axes to clear the way, the lizard man raiders of this attack caravan took out several small leather bags from their waists and sprinkled the green powder in them. For a moment, the entire circle was filled with smoke composed of these green powders. Hold your breath, free to charge. Charge out. The sand rhinoceros that Santos was riding on was the largest camel beast in the caravan. In the pavilion, he was not shrouded in toxic mist and had time to issue a warning. But others are not so lucky. Even the driver of the sand rhinoceros under his seat couldn't escape, accidentally inhaling a thick green smoke. I saw the driver covering his neck, the huge pain causing him to fall off the sand rhinoceros, and he could only wriggle painfully on the ground. In this way, he inhaled some poisonous mist again, and finally frothed at the mouth, with a pale complexion and a strange posture with protruding eyes, and died at the feet of Shashi. Most other people who are shrouded in toxic mist, if they don't hold their breath, are also the result. After inhaling the poisonous gas, camel beasts, including sand rhinoceroses, although they were able to persist longer than humans due to their resilient physique, they also went crazy for a while before heading towards death. The huge sand rhinoceros suddenly erupted in the face of the threat of death, and it frantically ran out of the area covered by thick green toxic mist. Under the control of the will to survive, I ran frantically towards any direction in the desert for dozens of breaths. But due to inhaling a large amount of poisonous gas, the four thick thighs of this giant beast were unable to support its body, and it convulsed and fell to the ground. Sitting on a sand rhinoceros, Santos looked back towards the direction of the caravan in fear and mixed with heartache. Damn it, these people must be coming for me. They might have known the news about the recipe on me. Those green skin scraps. Lizard raiders, due to their race, are immune to the vast majority of toxins and are accustomed to using poison to smear their weapons to increase their lethality. However, it is rare to use such a wide range of poisonous mist to attack during the plundering of commercial travelers. Such attacks will cause the death of valuable camel beasts in the caravan and reduce many gains. And in this attack against the sand rhinoceros caravan, after the death of the camel beasts, it was difficult for them to take away the remaining goods, and the lizard raiders did not have as many camel beasts to prepare for. If it were really an ordinary ambush, with the casualties caused by the first wave of strikes, and in exchange for a pile of goods that couldn't be taken away, this attack would be a huge loss. Unless the lizard raiders are not interested in the superior papyrus and silk fabrics transported by the caravan on the surface, but rather in other goods with higher value that can be easily taken away. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. People in the Wind and Waves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. People in the Wind and Waves. Lizard raiders are notorious fierce bandits in the desert, who run long distances like hyenas chasing after enemies until their blades tear through their prey's bodies and drink their blood. Generally, humans cannot escape the pursuit of these creatures in the desert, even on horseback. Their endurance is inferior to that of lizard raiders, unless they receive some additional help. The greasy trap, rapid movement technique. As a successful desert merchant, the legend of Santos Ben Zos' wealth allows him to buy half of the shops in the Grand Bazaar of Nam City. Rumors may be a bit exaggerated, but the merchant leader's wealth is indeed substantial, so he has several precious enchantment equipment for self-defense. In addition to the protective arrow stone ring used in battle, he decisively used the escape magic enchanted on his boots when facing the pursuit of the lizard man with his tail. The greasy trap can be set up along the way when escaping, using a trap made of magic summoned oil. Enemies will lose balance and fall when stepping on the trap while running quickly, playing a role in blocking the enemy. And the sprint technique can allow Santos to travel at a speed faster than a galloping horse in about an hourglass. With the help of enchanted equipment, Santos quickly ran on the sand ridges that were not easily ambushed. Although with magical help, he still occasionally fell and rolled down like a spherical object. Without time to think about his own embarrassment, Santos knew that the effects of magic were limited by time. He was not a spellcaster, unable to remember spells, and unable to charge enchanted equipment with obsidian beads. If he couldn't shake off the lizard man marauder in an hourglass, his life would be gone. These damn green skin crawlers must be for that group of skumas, they may know more. Santos tightened his scroll tube, which had been wrapped around his waist rope all along. Even as he was running for his life, he was always concerned about its safety, as if it were its little life. If it weren't for delivering the enchantment formula to Nome on time, the caravan wouldn't have had to rush like this, and wouldn't have fallen into Greenskin's ambush circle. In fact, the value of the papyrus paper and silk fabrics transported by the Sand Rhinoceros caravan for copying scrolls can only offset the losses caused by adventurous detours, and there may even be losses. The truly profitable item is the prohibited item skuma carried with it. A small bottle of this medicine requires 30 silver kate. And a sturdy slave with the bait emblem only needed 5 silver kate. This skuma potion was passed down from the most chaotic city in the desert, Kopt, and is said to be an alchemy potion invented by a powerful witch. This kind of potion was once presented as a hobby tribute in front of the pharaoh, but it was uncovered by the Grand Vizier, Prime Minister. The skuma potion can stimulate a person's energy, allowing them to gain temporary energy and improve false effects. It is helpful for casting battles and can also alleviate the pain of physical injuries. However, the side effect is that it can bring great addiction, and long-term use of this potion will gradually destroy the user's body. The enraged Great Vizier personally led the spellcasters to uncover the hidden lich in Kopt and extinguish his soul fire. He also smashed his life box, which was hidden for resurrection, and soaked it in a septic tank to warn the world. Skuma potion, as a prohibited substance, is strictly prohibited from being manufactured, transported, or consumed by all Medici people. But capital is afraid of no profit or too little profit, just like nature is afraid of a vacuum. With 50% profit, it takes risks, for 100% profit, it tramples on all human laws, with a profit of 300%, it dares to commit any crime. So since the day of skuma's birth, some merchants have been willing to take risks for this depraved commodity, to violate the laws of the empire. Of course, this is only a private situation. If it weren't for the last time we encountered a sandstorm and buried a batch of expensive spices from the Nam consul family, which required us to pay so much compensation and fines, I wouldn't have fallen into contact with those criminals to earn these damn blood money. Damn sandstorm, damn consul family, blazing sun above, cursed you. Although it had been a few weeks, Santos still couldn't forget the scene when he came into contact with the supply of skuma goods from the exiled city of criminals in Kopt. The dimly lit underground houses, protruding like graves, spread throughout the entire city, appearing to the outside world like a sprawling city of graves. The city of Koptik is said to be a paradise for ancient half-bodied people to live in. However, due to desertification, the half-bodied people migrated from clean and tidy cave houses, leaving only remnants of cave-like buildings. Several years later, it turned into a terrifying city like a cemetery. Later on, the Medici Empire exiled criminal prisoners to this city, allowing them to rise and fall on their own. For hundreds of years, this city, which was inherently filled with evil, became the most chaotic source of evil in the entire empire. However, this city also has this extraordinary prosperity, where various evil transactions can be found. Evil creatures such as sorcerers, blasphemers, ogres, and even ghouls and witches can find their hiding places in Kopt. This city is the only one without a consul and city guards. Every year, the most terrifying tornado in the desert sweeps through this city. Apart from the small and cramped cave houses left by ancient half-bodied people, no city building can be left intact. Santos Ben Zos brings caravans to this city with abnormal prosperity every year, but only completes the delivery of goods in some peripheral bazaars. This time, in order to obtain the source of skuma's goods, he had to entrust a local foreign merchant who was always trading with him to recommend him, and only then came into contact with the underground chamber of commerce that sold skuma, trading 100 skumas and an enchanted scroll that could purify skuma to make another new variety of corruption potion, moon sugar. That foreign businessman is just a lizard man. Curse these disgusting and treacherous green skin reptiles. May your descendants' eggshells burst. May your tribes be attacked by thousands of tribes. May your drinking water dry up. May you. When a merchant was young, he may have been a good warrior, but he was not a spellcaster, so cursing did not have the effect of harming enemies. The verbal and emotional abuse could not change his physical strength, and his whole body was wet with sweat, and his steps gradually slowed down. Compared to his pursuers, the lizard man marauder is much better, at least their endurance is better than that of the overweight merchant leader. In the desert, these nomads chased for almost an hourglass under the scorching sun without being shaken off by Santos. After the magical effect of enchanted boots disappeared, the distance between the two gradually smoothed out. Damn it, we must find a way to catch up and die. The pursuer moves forward with all their might, while the pursuer flees in a panic. This is a battle of patience that drains the body's fluids. The lizard man marauder had already drawn his sickle blade sword, ready to drink blood to the brim. The chased merchant stopped and gasped for breath to regain his strength, drawing out his machete and preparing for the final battle. Just as the battle was about to break out, shadows covered their skies. Is it the clouds that obscure the scorching sun? It's a dragon. It's a member of the tyrant's clan. The blue dragon is here. The lizard warrior who needs to occasionally blink his blinking membrane to moisten his eyes dare not even blink. Even if immersed in the emotions of slaughter, they will never forget what the top-level creatures in the food chain are on this land under their feet, waving their weapons and secretly throwing them on the sand. All warriors have slightly bent leg arches, not wanting to escape. Even if they retreat into the sand, it is impossible to avoid the attack of a dragon. This move is inherited from the ancestors of the tribe who have experienced dragon mouth escape. The best way to escape from a giant dragon is to kneel down and use fear to satisfy the self-esteem of powerful predators in exchange for life. However, Quez, who arrived above the heads of both sides, clearly did not want to show mercy. He flew here to once again cover up the traces of exploration relics left by the Diamondback clan. In fact, halfway through, he was thinking that if the place where the battery was discovered was too important, then when he returned, the Diamondback might also be on his hunting list. This is the way to tidy up the beginning and end. Long she plowed through the formation of the lizard raiders, and a strong and deadly electric current directly pierced through the tough skin of these nomadic tribes. Facing the dragon breath directly, from the outside to the inside, penetrating deep into the internal organs, the electric current burns them to ashes in the shape of charcoal. The lizard people who are slightly further away, under strong vitality, endure the numbness brought by the electric current and struggle to escape into the sand. There are still age restrictions, even if the body is already strong enough, the dragon breath is still not strong enough, and it still needs to continue practicing. There are also unlucky people who have missed the net. Unfortunately, they will suffer twice. The 6th level sculpting magic, Chain Lightning, caused Quez to humanize his fingers with dragon claws, and a shimmering blue light grid crackled. PS. 1. Bazaar. Market. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Moon Sugar Non-Sugar. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Moon Sugar Non-Sugar. The month of Opani is the closest month to the world and also the hottest month in the desert. But in such weather, some people got goosebumps all over, obviously not because of the cold, but because of fear. Santos Ben Zos swore that when he was young, he was a skilled warrior, even considered highly skilled in martial arts. Having traveled south and north for so many years, it can also be said that one has extraordinary courage and wisdom. But in today's situation, both martial arts and courage are unable to bring inner peace to oneself. Under the close gaze of a dragon, fear cannot be contained and will only spread. In fact, the blue dragon had no other movements, just the rapid airflow of his breathing suppressed the plump Santos on the ground. Looking at the ferocious dragon head that was comparable to its own size, smelling the air with a hint of ionized grass, all the thoughts and ideas of ordinary merchants lit up like the golden smoke they often enjoyed, and then drifted away like smoke. The blue dragon, who was originally planning to clear the scene through the lightning net, saw a person in the crowd emitting a magical item that triggered a spiritual light. There are indeed many life-saving equipment for big merchants. In addition to the protective Yashur ring and the speed boots, there is even a talisman to resist elemental damage. It was this kind of talisman that helped Santos withstand the deadly lightning web, only taking some flesh damage. Rich people, but why do they come to the Dragon Nest territory? Aren't their trade routes all far from the Dragon Nest? Quez, who is in charge of the hunting territory, naturally knows that this land is synonymous with a forbidden area for ordinary business travelers. Anyone with common sense knows that dragons have a paranoid love for wealth, and the caravan that walks through this land is undoubtedly like a camel beast sending itself to the mouth of a sand hyena. But what needs to be done still needs to be done. Just as Quez was about to use his claws to send the merchant to engage in an undecided battle with the previous lizard man raiders, the chubby merchant, blessed to his heart, suddenly raised a palm-sized badge. This area is all the land of the Blue Dragon Lord, and this Blue Dragon must also be under his jurisdiction. For general business travelers, the Dragon Nest territory is naturally an absolute forbidden area. But as the most successful small group of merchants, Santos's Sand Rhinoceros Caravan once ventured into doing business with Dragon Nest, and the dragon also had a demand for trading goods. Expensive spices for human society, tapestries for decorating nests, papyrus scrolls for transcribing texts, and even iron tools and weapons needed by dragon clans all rely on foreign caravans, but dragons rarely use money to settle accounts. But if the goods are properly matched, even if they are valuable and not so expensive, they can still be exchanged for something from this dominant group. For example, the sand mixed with dragon blood during the fights of young dragons, the dragon scales and teeth replaced by giant dragons, the skin, fur, and skeletal remains of some exotic monsters in the desert, and even the goods left behind by some giant dragons after robbing other caravans. As long as these things can be exchanged and sold, this trip of goods will also bring considerable profits. These caravans recognized by the Dragon Nest will be given a badge by Salota. A badge is a contract magic item made from broken and detached scales. According to the agreement, the holder is required to provide services or goods to Salota and the Blue Dragon tribe on time. In exchange, the holder of the badge will not be attacked without reason in the Dragon Nest territory. When transporting supplies to the Dragon Nest, the holder of the badge will be protected by the legendary dragon, and the family members and various affiliated races in his territory will also provide certain convenience. I am a merchant who provides services for the Great Thunder Lord, Dragon Nest owner, and legendary dragon Salata. I am protected by the Blue Dragon clan on this land. Santos shouted a long passage in one breath, holding the badge high above his head with both hands. He seemed to exhaust his courage with just one sentence, afraid to look up at the terrifying blue dragon Quest Phaeton. This is not easy to handle. This merchant has the old man's token badge. Blue Dragon's paw stopped before piercing deeply into the merchant's flesh, only scratching a little of his oily skin. Killing Santos will trigger the marker magic left by Salata, making the legendary dragon aware and covering up this discovery even more. But we can't just let this person go like this. After all, this place is too close to the place to explore. The thinking young blue dragon unconsciously swung his tail and stirred up a large amount of sand, scattering all over the merchant's body. However, he didn't dare to move, afraid of angering the giant beast in front of him. "Mortal, you and your companions have disturbed Quez's daily work," Blue Dragon said somewhat awkwardly. "As a noble member of the Duke of Thunder, I am not a companion to those greedy and ignorant lizard raiders. In fact, it was they who looted my caravan. It takes half an hourglass to walk in the northeast direction, about 2 opoles away, to discover the loyal and pitiful caravan where the merchants were brutally slaughtered. Santos struggled to squeeze out tears and snatched the ground with his head, swearing to the heavens. He confessed that he was definitely not with the lizard man, and that he was just a pitiful and looted businessman. Those lizard people who have been chasing for so long and haven't given up can only indicate that this merchant has what they need, or is he carrying a heavy treasure? Blue Dragon quietly gave himself an arcane vision and observed carefully. This chubby merchant did indeed have several enchanted items on his body, including boots, rings on his hands, elemental resistance talismans hanging around his neck, and the emblem given to him by Salada. However, the magical light of these enchanted items had dimmed. Finally, Blue Dragon's gaze focused on the scroll cylinder hanging on the merchant's waistband, which the merchant deliberately hid behind him. Unfortunately, in Blue Dragon's arcane vision, he can observe from an incredible all-round perspective without having to walk behind the merchant. Quez's lips curved into a smile, but in Santos's eyes, the Blue Dragon's expression became even more ferocious. With a vigorous wave of his wings, the huge wind pressure caused the merchant to somersault, and the Blue Dragon reached out and tore through Santos's waistband, grabbing the scroll cylinder. "Mortal, if you try to deceive and conceal, you must know what I know." Dragon language is composed of short, monosyllabic words that distinguish specific words based on sound frequency. When dragons speak other ethnic languages, they will have this accent, which sounds like a massive roar. "It's over, there's nothing I can break even with this time," said the businessman, sitting mournfully on the sand, carrying his pants without a waistband. "To find a way, we can only hope to save our lives now." Blue Dragon checked the scroll cylinder and was afraid of traps such as explosive runes and acid runes. He replaced it with another arcane vision. True Knowledge Vision, and then opened the scroll cylinder with the low-level spell of the mage's hand. Item name: Moon Sugar Synthesis Scroll, Instructions for Use. This is a production scroll for the new prohibited product Moon Sugar, which flows out of the chaotic city of criminals, Copt. Using this scroll, one can synthesize the depraved alchemy potion Skuma into a more depraved new potion Moon Sugar. This potion has a beautiful moonlight-like silver color, but it is a product from hell. This is the literal meaning. This magic scroll has a unique flavor of Bardo's hell and unique skills of the Batsu clan. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Common Techniques. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Common Techniques. Bardo Hell is a place where pity withers and resentment thrives. It is the home of the devil Bardo. There is the interpretation of the essence of evil through the rules of order, which best satisfies the imagination of travelers, the greed of treasure hunters, and the anger of paladins. That is the ultimate plane of order and evil, reflecting the cruelty of premeditation and cunning. There are over 20 kingdoms of evil gods located on the most famous order evil plane in this multiverse, but even noble beings like them dare not act recklessly there. In addition to the existence who has never failed and resides at the bottom of the netherworld in Bardo, 1. The cunning, cruel, and amazing Batsu devil dares to use conspiracy to subvert and seize various powers and forces in the multiverse. It is not surprising that Blue Dragon Quest discovered the creations of the Batsu demons in this plane. This race habitually uses conspiracy and trickery to obtain the fallen souls they need from various planes, and these souls need to be used to pay for the military expenses of the eternal blood battle against the Abyss Natalie demons. It has to be said that the thing, Moon Candy, is corrupt enough, and it is indeed very demonic. Devil's creation, hee. The Blue Dragon itself belongs to the evil faction of Order, and the deity of the five-color dragon race, the mother of all evil dragons, the eldest daughter of the ancient creation dragon King Io, and the queen of the five-headed dragons, Tiamat, resides in Bader Hell and is a powerful ally of the existence of Nesius. Because of this, Blue Dragon is very familiar with the habits and characteristics of Batsu Devil. Even if Quez thought with his toes, he knew that this Moon Candy scroll must be a tempting part of a conspiracy to fall into hell. However, he didn't know how many humans had been corrupted by these things on this plane, and what kind of demon had planned this conspiracy. He only had some rough guesses about it. Using this trick to seduce corruption should not be the high-ranking Batsu standing at the top of the power pyramid of Barto hell, such as the deep prison demon refining or the burning sacrifice demon. If high-level demons have such a deep understanding of this plane, they can create incarnations or directly open the gates of hell. Even if there is one night of being destroyed or forced to retreat, it is estimated that the souls of several city-states can be harvested, and the efficiency is much higher than this kind of trick. With foresight and gradual infiltration, one can also study something that is either a contract demon playing with words or a harvesting demon of unscrupulous merchants, with the latter being more likely. Where did you get this scroll from, mortal? Blue Dragon Quest's large apricot yellow pupils stared closely at the merchant, and he casually added a detection lie. Coptic City. It's the city of the path of sin. I was originally the owner of the Sand Rhinoceros caravan, but the last time I shipped goods, a caravan of camels encountered a sandstorm, and both the goods and caravan were buried under the sand dunes. I need to pay compensation to the big shots in Nam City. A sum of money empties every gold coal, silver cate, and even copper deben hidden in the pockets of the upright Santos. I just took the risk of selling prohibited items such as skuma and this moon candy scroll from Coptic City. Someone in Gnome City would buy these things at a high price. People who have been enchanted by the detective lie magic tend to have a tendency to confide to some extent. It took a quarter of an hourglass for Santos to explain his experience of falling from an honest merchant to an alchemy toxin dealer. The detective lie magic did not turn the magical aura of lies into the red color in the arcane vision. Merchant, for the sake of your service to Salada, I can temporarily forgive your life. I can also return this corrupted enchantment scroll to you, so that you can preserve your ridiculous dignity in Nam. The chubby merchant's face lit up, and a hint of excitement flashed by. As long as we can retrieve this scroll, we can make up for the loss caused by the caravan's shipment and even pay off a portion of the debt owed to the first consul's family. But if Blue Dragon is really so generous, then the camp will deviate from the evil 5-color dragon. Of course, the metal dragons of the kind camp find themselves daring to transport contraband scrolls, and it is estimated that the possibility of directly killing themselves, an evil merchant, is the greatest. However, my tolerance is not to appease your offense. You must provide yourself with a bail. As a noble member of the Thunder Duke's clan, I am willing to pay bail, but now I don't have a copper merit certificate on me. The merchant seemed less afraid when his expertise in commercial transactions eased. His eyes turned and he said, perhaps I can use equivalent services as bail. Sure, but we need to draft a valid contract. The speculation just now gave Blue Dragon some associations. Since the Batsu clan, who are also members of the Order Evil faction, will use contracts and conspiracies to achieve their goals, they can also do so themselves. This businessman appears to be very capable, but it's only a temporary misfortune that puts him in danger. And Quez himself has the responsibility of patrolling the Dragon Nest territory, if this convenience can be utilized. Allowing merchants to lead more caravans through the territory can greatly shorten the distance of some existing trade routes and save more time. Time is life, time is money. The drafting of contracts is not written on ordinary papyrus, but rather constrained by secular laws. Quez chose to emulate the Devil Barts and directly communicate with the flowing Styx, asking the merchant to sign a Styx contract with him witnessed by the Styx. The effectiveness of this contract is supervised by the will of Styx, and even if the gods want to violate it, they will have to pay a huge price. A contract is naturally an unequal contract, and there are no mandatory obligations for the drafter, Quez Fitanfetan. The signing executor Santos must abide by a series of terms, such as keeping the contents of the contract and the confidentiality of the signing situation confidential, completing the development of the trade route through the Dragon Nest territory with the support of Quez, levying 11 taxes, i.e. extracting 1/10 of the value of the goods, when crossing the Dragon Nest territory, and providing assistance worth no more than his entire fortune when Blue Dragon Quez finds him in the future. However, the situation was stronger than humans, and in order to survive, the fat businessman had to agree to all the contents of the agreement. At the time of reaching the contract, the river of Styx, which flowed through all the faces, appeared before both parties. The calm light red river branches out a finger-thick tributary that runs through the papyrus scroll carrying the agreement, and both souls receive the hint of reaching the contract. Ordinary people, once they violate the contract of the Styx, death is the most luxurious redemption. You are a knowledgeable person and should know how to do it. After saying this, Quez did not forget to add a suggestion spell to Santos, which can be used to transform a person's subconscious through enchantment. The effect that Blue Dragon implanted in the merchant leader can make him ignore the process of signing the contract with the dragon today, while also not forgetting to fulfill the contract agreement. After finishing these tasks, as Santos walked towards the oasis on the outskirts of the Dragon Nest Desert, Blue Dragon Quez secretly revealed an imperceptible smile. In my previous life, the company owner would beg my grandfather and grandmother everywhere to persuade me to invest. In this life, I actually had the opportunity to make a guest appearance as a venture capitalist. It's really interesting. Upon confirming that Santos was already influenced by the suggestion technique, he walked towards the desert oasis outside the Dragon Nest territory. Quez did not forget his original plan, spreading his wings and creating a strong airflow, sweeping up large areas of yellow sand to cover up the last traces of the group of lizard raiders or, in other words, the charred sand bandits. P.S. 1. The presence of Nexus. Asmodeus, the highest-ranking demon lord and unquestionable ruler of the 9 levels of hell, residing in the Martian fortress of Nexus on the 9th level of Barto Hell. Even the gods who make Barto's hell their home want him to be divided into 3 parts. Asmodeus is the oldest surviving devil, although some claim that he was not the first ruler of Barto Hell. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Entrance and Exploration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Entrance and Exploration. Standing on the shady side of the sand dune, looking at the inconspicuous slightly raised mound in front of him, Blue Dragon found the entrance to the ruins left by the Rattletail Padu. It's still too small for the Blue Dragon's body to enter, even just an ordinary young dragon seems a bit cramped. Quez had no intention of demolishing the slightly smaller entrance to the ruins, but instead used a spell to mimic and transform himself into a human. Due to age, the magical mimicry displayed only shows the appearance of a 7.8-year-old child, but with a very tall and robust physique resembling that of an adult. Magical mimicry cannot transform clothes out of thin air, so after casting this spell, Quez Phaeton becomes a naked child. Dragons do not have a sense of shame towards being naked, but they are different. Anyone with a mind nearly 30 years old on Earth cannot be so calm in exploring relics naked. Fortunately, considering this issue in advance and being prepared. While burying the lizard man predators, Quez casually peeled off the relatively clean-looking leather armor and more extravagantly used water-making techniques to communicate the water element plane, washing the leather armor clean. So after the magical mimicry, he quickly put on his already starched armor. The depth of the cave mentioned by the Diamondback Dragon is not too deep. You can explore it briefly today. If you can't finish it later, come out and deal with the cave entrance before making a wild guess. The young man transformed by the Blue Dragon, wearing slightly tight leather armor, held a sickle blade sword that had already melted and condensed into waves due to high temperature, and strode forward through the shelter of the entrance cave of the ruins. How can you feel like you've traveled through a tomb raiding novel, stealing caves, relics, treasures? If you're going through a tumultuous pursuit of gold, you might need to light a candle in the southeast corner below. If the Blue Dragon boy had walked in such a cave in his previous life, he wouldn't have the courage to think so much. The magical mimicry of Blue Dragon only transforms its body into a human, but fundamentally, it is still a juvenile dragon with no inferior qualities compared to ordinary young dragons. The powerful force flows through the muscles, and the sharp claws and teeth have only changed their appearance. Underneath the seemingly fragile skin, there are scale-like dark lines, and more importantly, familiar magic can be freely cast by oneself. Hey, I don't feel afraid even if a big Zongzi suddenly pops out. These boring ideas didn't last long. The Diamondback Dragon is a skilled excavator who has applied the spell of turning sand into stone to various load-bearing nodes in the passage, forming a sturdy scaffolding-like structure. The reinforced passage penetrates into the ground at a slightly steep angle. Although walking at such an inclined angle may be dangerous for most human explorers, it is not an obstacle for creatures like the Diamondback Dragon or Blue Dragon. Quez jumps from time to time, using vertical falls to slightly accelerate his travel speed. Quickly, the Blue Dragon reached the bottom of the tunnel, and the Sidewinder carefully arranged several branching caves in this area to confuse creatures who might have coincidentally entered. There are also quicksand traps in the fork in the road. If you accidentally enter them and do not have the ability to dig underground, it is easy to lose your life. This layout is pretty good. Blue Dragon and Diamondback Dragon both have a dark vision and can survive underground without carrying lighting. Quez carefully examined the fork traps left by Patu, and they were all set up very professionally, even better than he had imagined. It was impossible to distinguish which road was a trap and which road was the true path from the external excavation traces alone. Well, it's a bit close. If there were someone who could use prophecy magic here, it would be easy to find the right channel. Quez thought for a moment and decided to prepare some lead powder when he came back. As long as he mixed the lead powder into the sand at the intersection, it should be able to interfere with some simple prophecy magic. This is currently the maximum level of concealment that can be achieved. Powerful spellcasters can master more spells. Even if they do more, they can still achieve their ultimate goal. It can only be to guard against some adventurers who accidentally break in and have weak abilities previously. Patu naturally told Quez that the road was the correct path, and he walked into the second inconspicuous pit on the left. The winding road was about less than 200 wrist feet, which is less than about 30 meters away, and Quez found the place where the Velociraptor discovered lead acid batteries left by ancient civilizations. This is a huge warehouse-like relic. Estimated by Quez, the size of this warehouse is no problem even if it contains a creature that quickly became an extremely old dragon like Salota. The warehouse has a regular rectangular structure, which is clearly a sign of artificial artifacts. The passage through which Blue Dragon Quest entered was excavated from the arc-shaped fractured cracks of such a huge landfill pit. Quez's deep fingers lifted a small part of his magical mimicry and used his sharp nails to caress the wall that entered the entrance of the ruins. A material similar to cement was used to build the walls of this landfill pit. Quez rubbed against the gray-white debris falling from the wall and forcefully removed a large piece of cement. He found that there were also metal bars inside that were used to reinforce the structure. The Blue Dragon, with a dark vision, noticed the traces of the Diamondback Dragon climbing down the warehouse wall below. There are some pieces of wooden boxes similar to flat noodles on the ground of the cargo warehouse. It is estimated that these flat noodles were opened by Patu when they were scratched by sharp claws. Quez jumped down from the cave entrance, but did not land vertically. He stepped on the hole left by the claw of the Velociraptor when climbing the wall, released his force in a few places, and landed lightly on the ground. The air is a bit suffocating. Perhaps there were ventilation openings in this warehouse before, but over the years, Huang Sha probably has buried the ventilation pipes tightly. Blue Dragon used a magic to resist harsh environments for his own safety, which allowed him to avoid worrying about oxygen consumption for a certain period of time. With the ability to see objects clearly in the darkness, Blue Dragon Quest carefully inspected some of the original goods in this warehouse. Most of the goods are packed in flat noodles, and these flat noodles originally had some labels with similar instructions, but due to time reasons, most of the paint has evaporated, and only some black pigments remain, with halo-like color residues. Still using the recently frequently used arcane vision for inspection, there is no magical aura. Quez broke several flat noodles and found several same lead-acid batteries. These lead-acid batteries are likely to form battery packs. is it possible that the ancient civilization should also vigorously promote green energy? According to the owner of the dragon nest, the discovery of the legendary dragon Salada during the excavation of this ruins indicates that the ancient civilization must have been a magical and prosperous kingdom. If electricity is needed, there must be a magical solution, so why do we need to manufacture these lead-acid battery packs? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Assembly Line Factory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Assembly Line Factory. It doesn't look like a regular warehouse, but rather like a finished product distribution center in a factory. In the form of a human teenager, Quez patrols between the flat noodles boxes that are used to stack and the remains of the suspected scaffolding, patiently checking every corner of the warehouse. Finally, beneath the collapsed scaffolding residue, Quez discovered a metal riveted track hidden by cemented hardened sand and dust. And this undoubtedly confirms some of his speculations. If this track is used to transport finished products to the product distribution center, then follow this track. Based on his own speculation, he gradually stroked the cargo delivery track on the ground, and the blue dragon boy groped towards the wall in a corner of this cave. Sweeping away the dust deposited on this wall, a metal scroll gate painted with written symbols appeared in front of Quez. The boy searched for a while on the nearby wall and finally found a password lock made of a suspected plastic protective box with embedded metal gears. After trying to play with the password lock a few times, Quez found that the gears had rusted to death. If the estimation is accurate, the latch inside the door should also be like the password lock on the outside. In this way, using the spell knocking technique specially invented for opening doors may not necessarily be effective. Helpless, Quez had no choice but to resort to violent demolition as a means. To his surprise, the metal roll gate made of an unknown alloy seemed very sturdy. Even if Quez were to recover into the body of a dragon and use all his strength to collide, it would only create some concave deformations. Fortunately, the blue dragon boy had a flexible mind and promptly changed his mind. He did not continue to compete with the metal door, but instead tried to create a new passage from the nearby wall. The materials used in this building are really sturdy, probably not inferior to reinforced concrete. Quez, who was not yet proficient in the sorcerer's stone movement spell, dared not use the spell to directly pass through the rock layers. He was worried that if he made a mistake and got trapped inside, it would be troublesome. His choice was to rely on Blue Dragon's own digging skills. Which was Blue Dragon's specialty? To carry out excavation work. When he felt his paws were about to be smoothed out by concrete-like building materials, he finally dug a passage straight into the space behind the metal roll gate. Equipped with a spell effect to resist harsh environments, Quez walked straight into the space without worrying about the lack of oxygen. This space, which has been untouched for millions of years, was originally pitch black with no light for illumination. Even though Blue Dragon was born with a dark vision, it was able to see things in situations where the eyes could not see through other means of observation. But entering such an ancient relic allows for a more detailed observation, which means less danger and more discoveries. Therefore, as soon as Quez set foot, he summoned an illumination ball as a light source. The extremely bright light without any temperature instantly dissipated the darkness that lingered here. Behind the metal roll gate is a small corridor, and the ground is also covered with tracks that extend deeper, suspected of being used to transport goods. Perhaps due to its good airtightness, the wall color of the passage here has not yet peeled off, and even some text-like symbols still exist on it. The 13th Manufacturing Workshop of Quatman. Using the spell of knowing language, Quez recognized the meanings of these symbols. As he speculated, there was indeed a hidden industrial production workshop called Cutman's 13th Manufacturing Workshop inside, and the text on the wall recorded the production specifications of this factory. After carefully reading the text on the wall, Quez finally entered the factory workshop through this passage for transporting goods. Unlike the external distribution warehouse for storing battery packs, this factory workshop only occupies twice the area of the former and even more. The flat noodles outside that contain lead-acid battery products are not full of the whole workshop, but are stacked at the exit of the packaged products. The largest area occupied by this workshop is a winding conveyor belt. There is actually a flowing production line preserved here. Quez carefully observed the industrial creation that surprised him, and even found some structures around the conveyor belt that seemed to be used for automatic processing of products. Near him, which is also the transportation channel for goods, there are also several machines scattered that look similar to those automatic processing structures. They are like spiders, with 8 metal limbs, 6 of which are responsible for supporting the body, and the other 2 extending near the head have a 3-finger structure at the end of the limbs. The spider-shaped structures near the delivery way should be responsible for the transportation of goods, because their backs have rectangular grooves that can fit the size of flat noodles, and their abdomen also has 2 metal tires that can fit the I-shaped track. Reusing the spell mimicry to transform himself into human form, Quez first lightly touched these mechanical structures and found no response. Randomly stroking them, he found that the surface of these metal structures was not covered with any dust. Upon closer observation, Blue Dragon Boy Quez couldn't resist his curiosity and saw that there were not many types of structures. So he began to open the shell of a metal spider to see what was really going on. Opening the shell, he realized that there was a control system inside these metal spiders that was organized by gears and copper wires, similar to a circuit board. This control system was connected to various parts of the body through cables. The power system that drives this structure is powered by the previously discovered lead-acid battery. However, due to the fact that their battery packs have not been replaced for millions of years and have all experienced some corrosion and leakage, they have stopped working. These are vastly different from the design principles of most intelligent construction creatures in this world that are created by infusing elemental spirits with spells. Instead, they are more like some technological creations that Quez was once familiar with. Isn't this just an intelligent robot used to transport materials and produce finished products in a fully automated production workshop? Or is it a factory guard? Quez then opened up another slightly larger metal spider, whose shell was a multi-layer composite armor structure without any gaps in its grip. Quez could only forcefully unscrew one of its branches and pry open the armor, protecting its internal control panel bit by bit. It seems to confirm his speculation that the armor of this metal spider hides completely different functional modules from the previous structure used as a transportation vehicle. A continuous firing crossbow structure, and a special magic formation structure that can be used to fix the staff and automatically drive its casting. Sure enough, that ancient civilization also had considerable expertise in the field of magic skills. Quez rubbed his fingers over the magic array runes protected by outer armor that had not been damaged for millions of years, and then looked at the continuous firing crossbow cannon that had already tightened its bowstrings and attached crossbows. Thanks to the leakage of battery fluid from these structures, they lost their mobility. Otherwise, they might have to fight again when they came in, which would require some effort. After inspecting several metal spiders, Quez carefully observed other parts of the fully automated production workshop of this ancient civilization buried underground. The floor of the entire production workshop is covered with metal plates with wavy anti-slip stripes, which make a clanging sound as Quez steps on them. There are lighting fixtures hanging above the workshop dome, but due to the lack of energy supply, they are all turned off, like some useless decorations. Before crossing over, Quez had visited the production workshops of some automated chemical plants due to work reasons. In this workshop where machinery replaces manpower, human-machine separation is an important safety measure. However, in order to maintain or regulate those production machinery, when designing and constructing such factories, a compartment is reserved inside the factory for senior engineers to operate. Even in different worlds, the basic concepts of industrial production should be interconnected. In this ancient civilization's automated flow workshop, which clearly surpasses the world's productivity level, there should also be a similar design of operating compartments. Quez believes that as long as he finds a place where professional personnel can control the machinery in the production workshop, his adventure can yield the most rewards. The wiring inside those metal spiders is intact, and all components are also intact, but they cannot start due to battery leakage. The technical principles for processing or manufacturing some lead-acid batteries are not complicated, and with the help of spells, Quez is confident in independently producing a batch of the same energy modules. If we find another operating room that can control these machines, this production workshop will no longer remain silent like this. An automated processing factory with far greater productivity than the current world can bring huge wealth and strength to the Blue Dragon youth. Effort always pays off, and after tirelessly exploring every corner of the entire production workshop 2 or 3 times, Quez finally found the entrance to a suspected operation room at a similar egg-shaped grill. Before finding it, Quez had always believed that it was one of the ventilation devices with the same appearance as others. Fortunately, he eventually discovered a gap on the side of the mesh fence that was blocked by the dust that had accumulated there. The sealed gap looked exactly like the other ventilation outlets. The cemented dust did not stop the Blue Dragon boy's strength, but with just one forceful pull on the fence door, it tore apart the binding of the dust adhesive. The key is that there is still a pneumatic gate in the access room, which is made of the same sturdy material as the previously encountered roller gate. This forced Quez to transform into a Blue Dragon form again, using his claws to scratch through a large wall before fully dismantling it. Afterwards, the Blue Dragon boy was finally able to step into the core control room called Cutman's 13th Manufacturing Workshop. End of this chapter.